In the age of AI, documentation is more important than ever. So it really doesn't matter if you build software, you run a SaaS, even if you deliver technical services, you're going to need documentation. Things like help docs, API references, knowledge bases, all of these things are critical. And if we're being honest, even if you already have some of these docs, they're probably outdated or ugly or both. So Documentation AI is a platform that says it can help you both be beautiful, stay up to date, and even have a healthy dose of AI baked in. Not just AI for writing docs, but AI so that agents and LLMs can actually access your documentation in order to fulfill whatever requests have been thrust upon them. So in this video, I'm going to show you everything that Documentation AI can do, and you can decide if it's going to be a good fit for your business. But first, you got to know that this video is part of AppSumo's AI Week, which is happening right now. If you're not familiar, AppSumo is my favorite place to buy software online. I've been shopping there for well over a decade at this point, and they specialize in lifetime deals. So instead of paying monthly for the rest of your life, you just pay once. Now, AI Week is their curated collection of the best AI-powered tools, all at the lowest prices, running through February 27th. That is really soon. So if you want to lock in the best deals, you got to check it out right now. Documentation AI, the tool I'm reviewing today, is one of the featured deals at AI Week. It's normally $29 a month, but you can grab lifetime access starting at just $59. Now, we'll get into all of the plans and pricing later, but you should know that even if you're not into documentation, there are a ton of other AI tools worth checking out right now at the lowest price they're ever going to be. Everything from marketing to productivity to research, basically anything where AI can save you time and money in your business. And if you're an AppSumo Plus member, you can save an additional 10% on every purchase, which just makes these deals even better. I'll have a link to AI Week down below in the description. If you click on that before making a purchase, it helps support this content, but doesn't cost you anything extra. Now, let's get into Documentation AI. All right, I've got my account set up right here for Documentation AI. I'm going to take you through the editor and configuring everything and all of the features in a moment. But I thought first, let's look at their documentation because of course, they're dog fooding their own product. This is the product being presented as a real documentation, so we can see how good it really is. What I like about Documentation AI is the organization. It's very, very layered. There's layers upon layers, so you can really have a lot of options for people in order to find the docs that they need quickly. I guess the most important thing for me usually in docs is good search, and they've got that with the standard Command K or Control K on the PC. I don't know, is that a thing? But you can press Command K and then you get a search box that pops up here so you can look for any sort of documentation. Like, how about API? We'll just type in API here. The results load automatically. I gotta say, I have a fondness for Documentation AI as I start using it because a lot of the technology is the same technology that I use on my website. The search looks pretty familiar over here. If I look for tacos, I'll find a bunch of results here. So yeah, really good stuff. I know for a fact that the back end of this is very strong. By the way, I've got a free email newsletter. Check out my website, daveswift.com. Okay, so for users coming to your site looking for documentation, this is what they'll see. We've got a great search experience. We also have Ask AI. We can slide out an assistant here and ask anything about the documentation. Like, how do I connect my docs up to Claude? And then it'll go ahead and give me a reasonable answer here. Let's see what it says. All right, this is a great answer. It gave me a step-by-step guide on everything I would need to do to take my documentation and then connect it up to Claude so that we could search it with something like an MCP server, which if you don't know what that is, you will by the end of this video. Now, earlier, I was alluding to the organizational structure inside of Documentation AI. This is where they really excel for a human using the tool because remember, we're only half of the equation these days. But if you are a human coming to a website running Documentation AI, we've got tabs where we can organize different types of docs in the tabs. And then inside of those tabs, there are headers where you can have different documents. So it's very easy to say, okay, I'm looking for API documentation. Boom, here we go. I'm in the right spot. But on top of that, and they don't showcase it in their own documentation, we can also have drop downs up top here to sort by things like languages or specific products. If you've got multiple products, you want to have docs for each set of products, we have a little drop down here, and I'll show you how to build that in a minute. So when I start thinking about it, documentation AI makes it so easy to get organized with your docs. You can have separate areas for each individual product. It can be in multiple languages, and you can even have versions of those docs as you change the product or a new model comes out, things like that. Now, typically the problem at this point is you get anxiety thinking about how you're actually going to write all of this documentation. But for that, we can just connect up to GitHub and pull all of our commits in, and it'll write the docs for us. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's head into my account and I will show you how all of this is set up, and we actually will get the AI to write some documentation for us and talk about how we can have another AI agent connect up to our docs so we can use it as resource material when it's doing coding projects or research or whatever else you need to access data for. So here is my account, and I'm in the navigation section here where I've got products, languages, and then I could even add in another tab here if I wanted to click the little plus button, and I could do versions. So if I had version 1 of a product, version 2 of a product, I could keep the documentation as I iterate. I'm going to skip that for now because we've already got a lot. Let me just show you what this looks like on the front end now with my plain vanilla website. Now, by the way, when you connect up your domain for the very first time, it'll scrape information about your website and start to build the docs for you automatically. You can also connect up your GitHub and it can do the same thing that way. So right here, we've got my introduction to ClientAmp. That is my website hosting and management company. Been around since 2017. We help companies run their online business, their software, their infrastructure. That's what we do. Now, if I wanted to have a doc site like this, I've already got a great start here. We've got our introduction, our quick start, our features, and integration. So really cool stuff. I didn't do any of this. It was all composed for me by AI. Now, what I could do and very well might do is have different sections for the different services that we offer. So let's say we did WordPress hosting. Well, we could go in here and have a separate area just for WordPress hosting. And then maybe we also do Ghost hosting, another blog platform. Well, I can have a separate area just for that. You can see when I switched over using this dropdown, now I'm in an entirely different docs area. I still get the search, I still get Ask AI. I don't need to do anything to configure that. It's just built in. So as I add my docs, I automatically get search and AI included. It's all indexed automatically. And hey, I like the dark mode, light mode switch as well. I mean, even just looking at this absolutely blank page, I just wrote, "This is a test." You can see there are a ton of cool features just on by default, like a "Was this helpful" widget where I can say yes or no, and I'll get feedback on the back end for that. Then we've got some navigation here that just comes with it. I didn't have to configure this. I can just go right back out to the release history and see everything that's on the previous documentation. And right next to that widget dropdown, I do have a language dropdown where I can choose any language I would like my documentation to be in. It will not automatically translate it for you, but of course you can just have the AI do that. So over here in the editor, now we're back in the admin mode where we're actually creating our documentation. I'm going to show you how all of those features were put together. So if I get rid of all of these top areas, I can just remove all of the navigation and we can start to rebuild that. The first thing you would probably do is add in some pages, right? So I could do a new page group, which is like the header section. And we can add in an icon here and create our group. Now we've got our getting started section. Inside of that, I want to have a page. I'll call this quick start, and I've got a slug here that I can set up. By the way, you do get to connect this up to your own custom domain. I can show you where that's located a little bit later on. There's a badge area, and then again, we can add in our icon. There's also some display options, like if you want this to show in the sidebar, to show in the table of contents, and you can set a maximum width. I'm just going to create this page and then I'm going to hit publish here, and I don't have any content added at all, but we can just see everything we've done on the live site. All right, so here is our getting started group and then our page inside of it. And then obviously I just had a blank document. So let's go ahead and fill this up with some content. Now on the far left sidebar, we've got some options over here. We're inside of the editor right now, but if we head over to the integration section, we can connect up something like GitHub, which is what I've already got connected. We can grab any of these other integrations as well, by the way. So if you're using this tool for things like support, you've got Freshdesk, Intercom built in, so you can easily build your own knowledge base using AI and the data you've got over there. But for now, I've got GitHub connected and I just have a single repo connected for a vibe-coded WordPress plugin, but I'm gonna build out a documentation page for it. So back over to the editor, I've got my AI chat over here and I'm gonna make sure that it's got my repository selected, which I can see with the one badge down here. And I'm gonna have it make a getting started installation guide. Create a getting started installation guide for the CA banners plugin. All right, I got my prompt. Let's go ahead and send that in. And the AI is not rushing through this. It is really reading all of the documentation over on GitHub. And just now, after probably 45 seconds or so of thinking, it is starting to actually build out the doc, which I'm totally okay with. I would much rather it takes an extra minute to write the document than to rush through it and have things be inaccurate. And there we go. I don't know if you caught that, but it just wrote the doc and then it flashed on the page. Like there was no copying and pasting. It actually wrote this page, just boom, and there it was. And I love the fact that it really understood the command of quick start. And the first thing it does is talk about how to get your site up and running with the plugin in a couple of minutes. It took that to heart and then actually gave you very direct instructions. And it's got actual instructions here where you could go and grab it from the repo. It's not on the WordPress repository, so you'd have to get it from the GitHub repository and how to install it, the first few things to do. It's a well thought out document. But if I had changes, of course, I could edit them manually, or I could just go ahead and request the AI to make the changes for me. There's still the chat open over here. I could basically give it any direction that I wanted to see it take, and it would go down that path for me. But for now, I'm just gonna hit accept all, and I think the doc is looking pretty good. Now let's look at some of the manual editing options inside of this editor, because I love this editor. This is a Lexical Editor. I'm 90% sure of that, maybe even higher, which is an open source project created by Meta. It might be the best thing that Meta ever made is the Lexical Editor. I'm a super fan. Let me show you how it works over here. So we can just drag things around, right? Very kind of Notion-esque, I suppose. And then I can use the plus button over here to add in a new block. And you can see we've got all of these standard blocks, but also some really exclusive ones that they probably created themselves for documentation AI. Things like the code group. I'm not sure I've seen that one in other tools. Lots of developer specific things here like parameter fields. But we've also got kind of marketing or consumer friendly cards as well. Things like adding a tip. It's a nice little colored call out. So we could say something like, make sure to back up your site before making changes. And if I wanted to edit this further, I can click on the 6 dots over here and I've got all of my options. Maybe I'll make the text bold and maybe make it a little bit larger. We'll do an H3 here. Now, as you're playing with the editor for the first few minutes, you'll probably find yourself pressing the plus button to add in the new cards. So it's kind of hidden. You have to hover over it and you go and you look through the cards. But eventually, you're going to learn which ones you want to use 90% of the time. And you can just use slash command. So if I wanted a headline here, I'll press /H1. I'm in a H1 here. This is my title. And then I can press return and just continue typing and it's going to default to body copy. Of course, you can add in images or embed iframes, basically any content you want to, you can embed. Here's a YouTube URL that I can embed. All right, we're going to insert this one in here. There we go. That's what it's going to look like in your docs. So if you want to have a visual representation of how to do something as well as a text one, you could definitely do that. Okay, so that's the editor. It's really clean, simple, and you might not even need to do it if you've got a lot of stuff stored on another location. You can just import it and have the AI take care of it for you. Now, what about translating it? Let's actually try to do that. So to get started with translations, we're going to head back over to the navigation area, and I'm not going to click on these plus buttons because this would add another group. So if I wanted a different heading area on that left-hand sidebar, that would be a new group. Where I want to click is above groups so that I can have more of a top level. You can just think of it like nested folders, right? So we're going one layer out of the onion here. And this time I'm going to add in languages. And in fact, I'll want to have at least 2 languages. So I'll start with English, which is the current language here, and then we'll go back and do the exact same thing. So under language here, I'll just do the drop down and choose new language and say Spanish. So now I've got 2 discrete areas, right? I've got my Spanish language and my English language. The English language has the page in it. If I go over to Spanish, it does not. So I want to make it even, essentially. So what I'll do here is add in a new page, and I'll just call this one Quick Start SP, add it in. And then in my AI, I'm gonna start a new chat over here so I don't have a clouded context window. And I can actually cite that Quick Start page. So I'll do @QuickStart, and I'm gonna cite the one that we created together, which was -QuickStart, translate this into Spanish. So we can see over here, it's actually thinking about the original doc, and then it's going to go ahead and translate it into the new Spanish doc. There we go, it's coming together. And this time it did tell me to copy and paste it. So I'll just say add it to the page for me. And there we go, it's all done. I've got the same doc. We can see very similar layouts here. Even this is my title was translated in because that's on the original document, of course. Yeah, so using the tool like a human really just takes maybe 10 or 15 minutes of playing around with it, and you start to understand the organizational structure, and the editor is as easy as anything to use. So you'll just decide, well, do I want to have extra products? Do I want to have versioning of those products? How do I want to group things together? I mean, really, that's the only part you need to even do manually. And I kind of wish you could just tell the agent to build that part too. That would be really great. But what about making your documentation accessible to outside LLMs? That is a critical thing. I think moving forward, the ability for your AI agent, whether you're using Claude Code or Google CLI or Open Code with your own model that you're hosting on your stack of Mac minis on your desk, whatever you decide to do, making applications be able to interact with each other via the API is more critical now than it has ever been. And I don't think that's going to slow down going into the future. So how does that work? Really happy to see over here, they have an MCP server as like one of the main items. It's in the left-hand sidebar. There's only 6 items over here, and it's not nested somewhere inside of settings. It's its own thing because it really is that critical. Right away, when you get your own account, you've got an MCP server. There's no setup to do. You just basically point your LLM at this MCP server, and it will be able to access all of the documentation. URL might be easy to guess. It's going to be somewhat related to your actual public URL. So if you wanted to make your documentation more locked down for humans or for robots, of course, there is privacy controls built in. If you go over to settings, access control, you can change your documentation to be public, private, or partially public or private. Let's start with partial because I feel like that's the one that needs the explanation. I'm just gonna set a password here. We'll do a very secure one here like password123 and hit save. Now, if I visit my documentation that's public, of course, I'll just be able to browse it like normal. But if I go into my editor and I restrict some pages to be private, you can see here, this one is currently visibility protected. Let's open this up in an incognito window. Now, before we do that, we do have to publish the documentation again because we've made changes here. So make sure that everything is the latest version with the security and all of that. Now, as soon as this is done publishing, I can right click here and open in an incognito window. Anyone else struggle to say that? Incognito window. That's a fun word. All right, it's published. Let me go ahead and open this in a new link. And sure enough, here we are. We've got to enter in our very secure password 123, and we are now able to view our documentation. So we can definitely restrict certain documents. You can restrict entire groups. So back in the editor here, for example, if I just add in a bunch more pages here, and I'm gonna add some groups in, those are those headings, those darker headings that live above it. So I'll just call this heading 1 and heading 2. Now I can take my documentation and I can move it around inside of the headings as it makes sense to me. Now, these are out of order, and so it's probably triggering someone out there, but the idea is that I can change a single document to be public. So the heading itself is visibly protected. Let's make everything in that heading visible except for this page. I can make it protected. And this one, I want the whole thing to be protected, or maybe just, I don't know, the other document. So I'll make this part public and I'll make this part protected. You get the idea. It's very easy to make sweeping decisions, make the entire area protected. In fact, we could do that for the language. Boom, the whole language is now public or it is protected. You can set the visibility very, very granularly, and it's really easy to switch between whether you want it public or behind a password. But anyway, I got kind of sidetracked there talking about privacy with the MCP server. The way this would work is you just copy this and then you give it to Claude or whatever LLM you're using, and if it supports MCPs, it can just start talking to it. So for example, if I wanted to connect up my knowledge base to Claude Desktop, what I would do is go over to the settings and then the connectors and then add a custom connector. And it even says right here, remote MCP server. I'll just paste in my URL here and I'll just call it my docs, and then hit add. Of course, you'd label it something a little bit more specific. And you can see here, it now shows up as an MCP server that you can chat with in your chats, in your co-work sessions, in your coding sessions. It's gonna be available to you wherever you are inside of Claude. And just to test this out here, I'm gonna go into incognito mode inside of Claude so it doesn't know anything about this banner plugin from any previous chat I might have had with it. And I'm gonna make sure that my connector is on here, hitting the plus button, and go down to connectors. I can see my docs are right here. I'm gonna turn off everything else so there's no chance it's pulling in the info from any other place. I guess I can't, my Gmail's already disconnected. Okay, perfect. All right, let's go ahead and search to find out if it knows how to get started with the CA Banner plugin. What is the first step to get started with the CA Banner plugin? You can use my docs as a reference point. By the way, no, that's not cheating to tell it to use the MCP server. That's what you should be doing if you want it to use a particular source. Guide it to where it needs to go to look for that. All right, let's go ahead and send that chat in and see what it says. All right, and ask for permission. Can it use that server? I'm gonna always allow it here. It's gonna search that documentation and should give me a result here in a moment. Well, it searched the docs and it couldn't find the answer, but this is actually proving a different kind of point. I left that page protected, so it couldn't actually find it. Let's go ahead and we will make Quick Start visible again. We'll make it public, and now we'll ask it to try again. All right, I'm not saying anything special here, just please try again and we'll see what it does this time. All right, there we go. It worked this time. It says the first step is to choose an installation method. You install the CA Banners plugin either through the WordPress admin uploader or by manually uploading the plugin to the folder. All right, so it gave the correct answer. That is right. And it was able to connect up to my server, most importantly, to grab documentation to guide it. So if it was doing a coding task, it could learn about actual API connections that I have available. Or if it was trying to just give someone support, it could go ahead and read that documentation and find out exactly where they need to go, what they need to click, what menu item it's hidden behind. You get the idea here. All right, a quick look at the settings, and then we're gonna head over to AppSumo and look at the plans and pricing. So in the general section over here, we've got a couple different themes, Classic or Atlas. You've been looking at Classic the whole time here. We could set up our website URL and kind of just describe what our company is all about, add some logos, set our colors, decide on the navigation. There's even SEO settings down here. So if you want to get indexed by Google or other LLMs, they make it easy to do that. Really nice touch is they've actually added in redirects, so you can very easily set up redirects from one page to another if the docs change. That's really helpful, and it's nice not to have to upload some YAML file to some server somewhere to do so. Under domain settings, we can connect up our own custom domain. So if you've got access to your DNS records, that's a pretty easy switch. I can do something like docs.clientamp.com, hit save. It's going to give me the CNAME record that I just go ahead and pipe in over at Cloudflare or wherever you do DNS. Just copy and paste these few items in and you'll be good to go. We've talked a lot in this video about the organization of our data, but there's also organization structure here inside of the tool itself. So you're in an organization. Each organization can have multiple document sites. So you could have a developer's document site that's completely private and locked down. And then you could have a public facing one that's wide open. So you can create multiple document sites. That's really nice. And then if you get the right AppSumo plan, you can have more than one organization, more than one document site. I think most of them come with at least a few. We'll check the plans in a second here. We can also add in additional members, and you can check your AI usage. This is really important because AI usage is something that you don't want to run out of. Now, everything you've seen me do here in this video, I'm at 99.9 out of 1,000. So I've only used 0.1 credits. This is auto renewing, by the way, so we'll get a fresh dose in 30 days. I have the top tier AppSumo plan 4, and that's a good transition. Let's head over to AppSumo. Tier 1, $59. That's going to give you just a single editor seat, a single doc site, and a single org. Now, I think tier 2 is going to be the sweet spot for a lot of people because you get to unlock all of the features. I know when I buy something, I don't like to see the red X's. I want to have all the green check marks to make sure I'm not missing out on anything. And at tier 2, you also get the ability to have a private doc site and a public doc site. You get 4 of them total, so you can combine those however you like. You You get 500 credits per month. I think that's a pretty healthy dose. But if you really want more, the recommended version according to AppSumo is going to be tier 3, which bumps you up to 1,000 credits, 10 doc sites, and still a single organization. Now, if you look at this at first glance, you're going to be like, $250 going up to tier 4. What do I get? The credits stay basically the same. Well, one very important thing here is this is essentially like buying a 3-pack, right? Because we're getting 3 organizations here, and you'll get 1,000 credits per organization. You'll get 10 sites per organization. So it really is like triple the value. So buy 2, get 1 free. But you can't resell it. That's not how LTDs work. It's against the terms of service. You'll get banned. You don't want to deal with that stuff. So there you have it. That is documentation AI. So far, this has been my favorite tool I have reviewed as part of AppSumo's AI week. I know everybody's got different needs, but I like clean documentation. I like how easy it is to use this tool and how easy it is to connect it up to the other tools that I'm using more and more, like LLMs. This is a tool I definitely could see myself using in the future. I can think of quite a few scenarios where it's going to be helpful. I'm going to score this one an 8.3 out of 10. If you do any documentation at all, and if you think about it, you probably do, I would highly recommend grabbing at least tier 2. Of course, you want to do that with my link down below in the description. Thank you to everybody who's been watching and commenting and liking the videos. I will be back again with one more deal before AI week expires. Make sure you get subscribed so you don't miss it. Thanks again to AppSumo for sponsoring today's video. I'll see you in the next one.